segue into our guest speaker today. We have Keith Freitas, who is the Director of Airports for Contra Costa County, Buchanan Fields, and Byron Airports. So we're going to hear a little bit of an update from Keith about what's going on there, the economic impact, jobs, and everything we can ask him. So Keith, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, let me try to share the screen. Everybody see that okay?
Perfect.
All right. So I'm open to questions as we go through this or at the end. So if anybody has something as I go through, feel free to interrupt me. But as Melissa said, this is kind of an overview of what's happening at the two county airports. There's only two in the county, and the Contra Costa County runs them both, Buchanan Field in Concord and the Byron Airport in Byron. So Contra Costa County airports, they are economic engines, job creators. The airports operate without any help from the county's general fund. And as a matter of fact, we generate revenues back to the county's general fund. We derive our revenues from a diverse mix of aviation, non-aviation. I mean, obviously the aviation users at the airport, but the golf course and the hotel and Sam's Club, those are all on our property. So we have leases with those folks and they pay us revenues. We're starting to really get into being attractive to new developing technologies, which I'll get into detail, and new development. We do have some 50 acres still to develop at Buchanan and a little more, closer to 100 acres to develop out at the Byron Airport. So a few years ago, back in 2017, we did an economic impact report for the two airports. As you can see, annually, we do about we generate about $106 million a year between the two airports. That's direct, indirect, and induced economic benefit. There's some 828 jobs associated with the two airports. And then there's, again, 8 million in state and local revenues, another 10 million in federal tax revenues generated from those operations. And so here's a little comparison of the revenues, between 2017, 18 fiscal year, and then 19 and 20. As you can see, about a 9% increase, but all the things that go into the revenue, the aircraft tax, that's about 1%. So if you do the math, back in 2019-20, 1%, or we have about $120 million worth of airplane values here. And so if you're an aircraft owner, like a property owner of a house, you'll get a tax bill, and those come back to the county, schools, special districts, and the airport. So aircraft tax, unsecured, possessory interest tax, secured tax, sales tax, TOT, transit occupancy tax for the hotel, business license, and then the direct leases and licenses, and the bulk of those revenues come directly back to the airports. That's what we use to operate the facilities. And it's important to note that in the 2019 and 20, the start of the pandemic fiscal year, we still saw an increase 9% over a couple of years before. And then here's a breakdown specifically of 2019 and 20. Again, the bulk of those revenues come back to the Airport Enterprise Fund. That's the staff cost to run the two airports, the maintenance, insurance, all those things. But $1 million in that fiscal year went to local schools. 2.2 million went back to the county's general fund, and then almost $300,000 went to special districts. There's some 300 special districts that we contribute to. Commercial service, Buchanan Field, we've had on and off, and most recently JSX. So Buchanan Field is one of 382 airports, commercial service airports in the country, which basically means that the inspection safety protocols we follow to have that kind of service, same as that you see at Oakland or San Francisco. We have those same standards, even though we're a smaller airport, but that allows us to have a facility or an operator like JSX that's providing commercial service And then our smaller airport, Byron Airport, is a general aviation facility. Still does a lot of business, aviation related. And the question was asked, we have GSX right now, which serves Burbank, has flights directly to Burbank and Orange County. We constantly get interest from other carriers like Horizon, SkyWest, looking at possibly providing services. And even GSX is looking at expanding the destinations that they serve. Las Vegas is on their consideration list. Up north, Portland, Seattle, San Diego. Those are all under consideration by GSX. As I mentioned, here's a picture of them departing one of their Burbank or Orange County flights. And here's their numbers. They just hit, as a matter of fact, yesterday was their 5-year anniversary. Started in April of 2016, and they had 11,000 passengers that short year, if you will, from April to December. And then they've grown ever since 2017, 18, and 19. In 2019, 42,000 passengers. Obviously, last year, 2020, with the pandemic, that number is way down. We're similar to the other big airports. Their passenger count was probably about 20%, 25% of what it was in 2019. We're seeing those numbers pick up again in 2021, and we'd expect that to continue all the way through 2022, 2023. For us, it's all about, and you've heard this many times, location, location, location. Kind of sit in the middle of the Bay Area with, Napa to the north, San Francisco to the west, and Oakland, Silicon Valley, kind of to the south. Great location. As we get businesses wanting to do things and they have an aviation component, great location. Both airports are great locations. One of the things the county dove into about 3 years ago was Byron Airport, kind of in a remote part of the county. What can we do to bring business out that way? And what we were finding is that there was a lot of startup companies in aviation that were in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, that want to do testing, in particular, drones, UAS, unmanned aerial aviation systems, and artificial intelligence, again, unmanned aircraft. And those areas, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, are too congested airspace-wise to do a lot of that testing. So in our case, Byron was a great location, and we currently have multiple companies doing testing out at Byron Airport. Kind of dive into that. But what we did beginning of 2020 is we signed a partnership with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, one of the 7 designated UAS test sites in the United States, as designated by the FAA. And so we are now, our 2 airports are satellite locations for them as a partner with University of Alaska Fairbanks in their Pan-Pacific UAS test range complex. And here's some of the companies that you may not know are already here. We've got some companies looking out at Byron, as I mentioned. I'll show some pictures of those. But some fairly large startup companies at Buchanan Field. Volanzi is one. They started in 2019 with 25 employees. And even through the pandemic in 2020, grew to 80 employees. And by the end of this year, they're expecting to be up as high as 150 employees. We've got and their focus is large drones. They carry, they're 50-pound drones. They carry 5-pound payloads. Most of it is delivery service. That's kind of what you see there in the middle left picture. And another company called X-Wing, which is working on autonomous flying aircraft. The plane they're looking at specifically is a Caravan, which is used, it's kind of the small turboprop airplane used by FedEx. And, their ultimate goal is that, one pilot might be flying 5 of these airplanes instead of 1 pilot per airplane. So they just had their first fully autonomous takeoff and landing last week. A little news media went through out a couple days ago. And then it's all the way as small as a company called Birdstop. So what you see here in front of you is a self-contained little, the metal box there with a drone in it. So that might be placed out, let's say a construction site, just to, it's, from your home, you could launch this drone. It could circle the construction site. It could construct, circle the vineyard, check things out, go back, recharge itself, and be protected from the elements and security. So that's a company that's doing testing out at Byron Airport right now. This was a group of college students that were competing in the annual, it's a competition, Go Fly competition sponsored by, I think it's Northrop Grumman and Boeing out at Moffett Field. And this team was college kids from the Netherlands. They were doing some testing of their competing drone. And they were just doing some testing out at our airport in preparation for their competition out at Moffett. Here's a scaled version. I've got a couple ladies, Leah and Annie from Supervisor Burgess and Mitchoff's office. Vahana was doing a scaled version of their vertical takeoff and landing. Basically it's the Lyft or Uber version 10 years from now, where they'll come pick you up in your house and fly you to San Francisco in a few years. But all of that's happening out at the two airports. And then development wise, here's an aerial of Buchanan Field, the multiple areas we have vacant for development. And here's 5 of the top projects. We've got a 3-acre light industrial park, new fire station moving in Pacheco onto the airport, self-storage, a 16-acre light industrial e-commerce complex, and then a new general aviation terminal building. So again, here's the light industrial. It's got a warehouse, small warehouse with some office space attached to each of these complexes. Here's the fire station. What's unique about it is this component has, they recently partnered with AMR. So it's Confire is also doing the air ambulance component with AMR and CalStar Reach. And so they'd have both a fire station and a hangar on the airport. Self-storage facility, this is the property that's just adjacent to Highway 4 and Solano Avenue. And then a large 100,000 square foot e-commerce facility, charging stations for their vans, parking for their employees. And then terminal building. So this is the wonderful couple double wides stuck together. That's a terminal building that we've had for more than 30 years at Buchanan Field. And then this is the 20,000 square foot facility that we're looking to build. We just received bids a couple weeks ago, and we're working on a contract with a contract to start construction in the next few months this year. There's the ramp side. So it not only has air terminal, has the aircraft rescue and firefighting bays, and then airport administrative offices as well, all in the 20,000 square foot building. And then out at Byron Airport, a couple projects going out there. Again, urban air mobility, vertical takeoff and landing, artificial intelligence, all that is really taking off out there in particular. A couple phases there. We've got an airport building, maintenance building, aircraft rescue and firefighting facility, and another 36-acre non-aviation warehouse light industrial project being proposed. Here's kind of the aerials of those locations. Byron Airport. And then that's, again, where the airport's facility, the storage for the aircraft rescue and firefighting engine, which you see there to the left is yellow. And this is the larger urban air mobility. It's basically hangars for aviation uses out at Byron Airport. It's the development, the 2 rows of hangars to the left side of the picture. And then this is their construction, which has just started about a month ago. about a 4-acre project. So the economic development and growth of the airport is important not only for the airport, those are revenues obviously directly that come to us to run the facilities, but as I mentioned early on of this presentation, every new development, those have possessory interest taxes that go back to the, again, county directly, schools, special districts, but the same is with every aircraft that is based here. A few years ago, we had one of the more expensive aircraft based that's since been relocated, but similar size aircraft are based here. But just one of those aircraft, $60 million aircraft, generates, $372,000 back to the county's general fund, just that one airplane every year. And so as we continue to grow, that's kind of important for the county to continue. So that's my quick overview. And here's some pictures of what it looks like inside from the large hangars. Some of the airplanes that are based here at Buchanan. And that's this is a picture of one of the largest hangar we have at Buchanan. And that's all I have.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If I'm coming, say, from, I know Jet Suite used to fly to Montana every once in a blue moon, but let's just say a plane, even if it's private, was flying into Concord. Do they pay fees to land in that airport?
That's a good question.
Take off in 2 days,
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. Some airports do that. Big airports typically do landing fees. SFO, San Jose, San Francisco do that. Small airports typically don't. The way we do it, we collect is fuel. So every gallon of fuel sold, there's a fee, usually 10 cents a gallon. That's a common fee for a small airport in the Bay Area. Every gallon sold, there's a fee charged, and that's usually how we charge. Somebody just coming in.
All right, thanks.
Keith, I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. But one is when you were talking about Jet Suite X, we're seeing the growth in passenger and the ridership. Do you know, are they meeting their own projections of their expected growth?
Yeah, it's, the difficult part of answering that is this thing called the pandemic, right?
Right.
That has messed up everything. If you go back to, and I guess we could go back to the slide I had on JSX passengers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that kind of growth right there, from 11,000 to 26 to 33 to 42, those are all good passenger increases in growth. They were very happy with the numbers at Contra Costa County. The challenge for them at the time was they are also expanding to the east, as far as Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So now again, in 2019, it was really about how much, where are they going to place their equipment being their airplanes, to maximize their growth and, at the same time, maximize their, the number of percentage of revenue passengers. That's what they're looking at. But the passenger numbers were always good for them. Yeah, most airlines want, 80% utilization, that every plane is filled 80% or more. That's what they're looking for, and they were reaching those numbers.
Were they? So, despite the pandemic, they were reaching those numbers.
Well, again, before the pandemic. Pandemic has wiped that all out.
Yeah, there's almost no point in measuring anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you really look at 2019, and then everything I've read at this point, they don't expect airline passenger numbers to get back to 2019 numbers until 2024. I think that's pretty far out, but I've seen them inch a little sooner, maybe 2023. But I mean, that's still 2 years out. It's a long time, but but they're hanging in there. And again, this was their first destination, so they've got a soft spot for us for sure.
Oh,
But as I mentioned, it's not just JSX. I mean, we're building this terminal not for JSX. We're building it for the demand of this community. You know,
right.
whether it's JSX or it's Horizon Air, SkyWest, you name it, it's, you know, might be somebody else. All the way to the other things I'm talking about, you know, I joke with people, I feel like one of the Wright brothers, because I've been doing this for 30 years. And what I've seen change in the last 3 years with, again, vertical takeoff and landing, electric airplanes, drones, all of that is unbelievable. I've never seen anything, you know, in the first 27 years of my career, I've never seen anything like it. But I've seen the last 3 is unbelievable. And it's going to happen. I mean, we talk about the Jetsons, it's going to happen. There'll be a time in which you call for an Uber ride and you want to go to San Francisco and you look, oh no, it's, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, commute's going to be horrible. And it'll only take you 15 minutes because you're flying via drone on vertical takeoff and landing. It's going to land in front of your house and pick you up and take you there whenever you want. It's going to happen. Just a matter of time.
How far out do you think that is if you had to estimate?
Well, I mean, there is so much money going in that investment, and there are some of the big ones. The top 3 are companies called like Joby, Lilium, a few others. And what's interesting is that they're not just talking about constructing or building this plane. They're taking it all the way through the whole model, which is we're going to build these, sell these, and run the Uber version. They're going to run the whole thing. So they're taking it all the way through. So it's not just, they're not just doing a component, they're doing the whole thing. They're figuring out how they're going to run it all the way through delivery of passengers to a destination, which is very unusual and unique. So I'm surprised if it doesn't happen in 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
At first, I said, well, look, they haven't even figured out how to get cars to drive autonomously by themselves yet, right? So, you know, it's 20 years down the road. I was educated a few years ago in that, well, actually flying autonomously, picking things out of the sky is much easier to avoid than when you're on the ground. I mean, if you think about it, on the ground, you got shadows and curbs, trees, and people walking behind cars. Up in, you know, space, it's much easier to pick out those hazards and much easier to, you know, fly around from point to another point, because quite frankly, the hazards are much easier to pick out and there aren't that many of them. So, you know, again, I thought it was going to be way behind cars. I was educated that more likely airplanes, autonomous airplanes, will be before cars are figured out. So anyway. Any other questions or thoughts?
Can I ask a question? This is Ed. So Keith, on Byron Airport, when do you see 5 years, 7 years, or 2 years, do you see Byron Airport actually doing freight delivery for logistics? Boeing has a drone now that can do 3,000 pounds. Do you see Byron developing into a freight forward airport with drones?
Yeah, you know, when you used to say freight, it was, you know, big, heavy airplanes flying, you know, 24 hours. I don't see that for either airport, but the component you just talked about, yeah, within that time frame of, you know, within 5 years, I think both, you know, I said e-commerce here, you know, that's the first one of the developments that's underway at Buchanan. We've got somebody interested in doing an e-commerce large warehouse. You know, they'll start with trucks, delivery vans, but, you know, whether it's drones flying, you know, short delivery, last mile, or the heavy, you know, 2,000, 3,000 pound delivery in, both of that, all of that, 5 years. Again, the speed at which I'm seeing this change, you know, again, I've been doing this for 30 years, last 27 years, you know, might be a new motor, a new airplane every, you know, 5 or 10 years. The speed at which things are changing, it's unbelievable. It's exciting, but it is truly incredible.
The follow-through question is, what kind of connect infrastructure for to upgrade Byron, whether it get a better road that connects it to the Highway 4 or extend the runway or other infrastructure utilities to the airport itself? Is there any money for that?
Well, luckily, the road component, which has always been an issue out in East County, is actually long underway. They're in environmental analysis and option selection for a connector between Basco Road and Byron Highway. That is in process. They've already done a lot of the analysis. Now it's really just selecting a route and finishing up environmental. That road could be in place in the next 5 to 7 years. So that's a big component. And the other is, you're right, Byron utilities, the water is well water, non-potable well water, and septic is, the sewer system is septic. So those upgrades need to happen. We're in the process of figuring out how we're going to do that out of Byron Airport for it to continue to grow. Those are issues that we're looking at right now and looking at funding. There happens to be a lot of federal funding for infrastructure and capital upgrades. So we're exploring those options as we speak.
I have another question on Buchanan. You said that for a development area, there's already a developer picked. Did I hear that right?
There are for some of the locations. Yes, usually what happens is somebody comes up and says they want to develop, a parcel of land because we receive federal funding. We've got to there's a whole process for us, solicitation for other competitive bids. And we have at least 4 or 5 properties right now that have gone through that. We've selected, the best bidder, if you will, and gone to the board to get approval to start negotiations. So the projects I named
at this point.
I'm sorry, say again?
It's still confidential who was picked?
Well, yeah, none of the companies you would know, because most of them are just development companies. If you'd like, send me an email. I could list out the ones that they're public because we went to the board to get approval to negotiate with them. So we can list those if you're interested.
I got a question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Brian Sanders. I'm curious. I've been hearing a lot of people in my area talking about the need for improvement of local roads, repairs to existing infrastructure. How much pushback are you getting in terms of the allocation of federal funds for infrastructure between airport plans and local infrastructure that needs repair?
Luckily, we get no pushback, and most of that has to do with the fact that the federal dollars we get are not your typical tax dollars. They are user fees. So the FAA funding we get at small airports is paid for by anybody who uses or spends money on a commercial service ticket. So the way the system is built is that they know that all these small planes at other airports, if they all went to San Francisco, you'd never be able to get a flight out of there, right? So every ticket is a ticket tax, and some of that goes into the FAA system to pay for small airports. The analogy I use when people ask me this question or something similar is, can you imagine if, the teenagers all had their scooters on the freeway every morning going to school? It shut down the freeway, right? Well, it's the same concept. If you have a Cessna 150, in between the 747s trying to land at San Francisco, they already have fairly large delays on a regular basis. Can you imagine what that would do to a facility like that? So some people think that the same tax dollars are fighting, but we're not. Those tax dollars actually come from the users of the aviation system.
Keith, one question in the comments was, can you speak to the corporate customers that use the airports?
In what way, or who uses, or what's the question? Just
Sharon, can you clarify?
Sure. I'm just interested in what are the companies that, and who are the C-suite folks that use the airport to come in and interact with their customers?
that is one that I really can't share, and I only say that because I don't know. Those folks are very private, and most of it, quite frankly, is security related. They rather not, know that their CEOs are traveling into or a location. But the airport simply doesn't handle, the private corporate jets directly. Those are handled through, our fixed base operators that cater to those types of businesses. I can tell you that number has picked up over the last 10 years. Corporate and private business aircraft use has picked up significantly over the last 10 years. No question about it.
I have kind of an off-topic question, just a little bit, but for years out there was a classic car race around Father's Day. And you got to get on the airplanes, and there was I think rides given. Will anything like that ever return? I always felt like that was a really neat thing there.
Yeah, so the Father's Day Air Show was actually sponsored by the chamber when I started.
We should talk about something different. New topic. New topic.
Well, and I'll kind of go through the details. It really came to it was a huge risk because all of the the financial side of it and getting all the volunteers fell to the chamber. We would, the day we held that Saturday and Sunday we did the event, the following Monday we met to start the planning for the following year. And the capital outlay, it was $10,000-$20,000 because we had to get the air shows. They had to be paid in advance. And then we had a few years where it almost rained. And then it was like, well, if it did, that would, kill the show. So all of those things, and then quite frankly, 9/11 happened. So, and, all of those just at that point, it didn't make sense to the chamber to do it. The airport just simply can't sponsor something like that because we're so small. Our staff, we have 15 employees. The chamber was needed to sponsor something like that because we had 200 volunteers to make this thing happen. So
wow, I never knew the chamber sponsored it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was a great event. Great event.
Father's Day, it was a lot of fun. A lot of work, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Attracted a lot of people.
Yes.
We have some of those photos in our archives, Kevin. I can show you those.
Hey, is there an I put this question in the chat. I don't know if you were going to read it or not, Melissa, but will the airport look at expanding? I guess it would be additional runways anywhere around its footprint to allow more lanes available for more freight or more passenger airlines? Is it kind of based on the lanes? The airport has lanes, and
well, it's more. I think what you're talking about is when you say runway extension. So every, I'd say every 10 to 15 years, and we're due probably in the next 1 to 2 years to redo our airport master plan. That's where we go through all of our stakeholders meetings, and then we bring this plan to our board of supervisors, and they say yes or no, this is what we want to see our airports become in the next 20 years. So it's those kind of questions that come up. There's those that would like to see a longer runway because then you get bigger airplanes, things like that. And of course you have neighbors that are very concerned about noise. So they don't want to see any of that, so those are all the things that go into the mix when answering those questions. But it is important to note, again, that the new technologies, a lot of them, don't require a longer runway. Both the aircraft engines and things like that are more advanced. I mean, JSX, when we came, we got all kinds of concerns and calls that they were going to be noisy and this is going to be horrible. I'm not kidding you. We have received 2 noise complaints from JSX in 5 years. That is outstanding. That is really outstanding. You know, we got, I think we got 20 noise complaints from when one of our local college basketball teams made it to the final, whatever college basketball, and 3 jets left here at 11 o'clock at night because they were playing down in Southern California somewhere. Yeah. So those are the weird things that happen that cause more complaints than JSX operating here for 5 years. So, you know.
Something's cool to see take off, for sure. All right.
Are there any other questions? If you're raising my hand or your hand and I don't see you, I'm sorry.
So
Ed, go ahead.
can we get Keith's email and can we get a copy of the slides?
Yes, to all of that. I will send that probably to Melissa's probably the easier. I think I already sent the presentation, maybe Melissa.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
maybe
I
you
have
already
those.
have that. You have those. All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'll send out an email to everyone with everyone on this call's contact information, as always, including Keith's.
It was a great presentation, Keith.
Appreciate it. Very kind. Thank you for the invite.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you,
Great
Keith.
job.
Thank you for
Great
keeping me
job.
out of trouble and not asking on my wife's birthday. So one day before is always much better.
Yes.
Happy birthday from us.
I will do that. Everybody take care. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank
Take care.
you.
At this time, I would like to invite up any of our elected official reps. If they have any updates that they want to share, please go ahead. If not, that is A-okay as well.
I'll start us off.
That's fine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Awad. I work for Contra Costa County Supervisor Karen Mitchoff, representing the communities of Pleasant Hill, Clayton, Concord, and most of Walnut Creek. And actually, as we're speaking, the Board of Supervisors meeting from this morning is still going on. Today is our annual budget hearings. So there's presentations on all aspects of the county budget. It started at about 9 o'clock this morning, so it's about a 9-hour meeting and they're still going at it. And the budget will be passed, I believe, sometime in May. This is just the start of our full budget process. As most of you know, if you are 16 and older, you are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Right now, we do not, Contra Costa County Health Services does not have any backlogs for appointments. So if you make an appointment today, you're likely going to be able to get in within the next couple of days to get your shots. So just want to throw that out there. If anyone has any trouble with that or wants to know where to sign up, please visit coronavirus.cchealth.org. And you can always reach out to our office for any assistance in that regard. We are currently in the orange tier, and that's kind of where those things sit. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Colleen. And I'll put that link that Colleen just said when I send the contact information as well.
Colleen, I haven't checked the statistics for like about 4 or 5 days. Are we still declining? Cases, new cases? Where are we?
Let me pull that up real quick and I can answer that question. So we've kind of plateaued in terms of cases per day per 100,000 and our testing positivity rate. We're not declining, but we're not increasing. So it's kind of sitting as is. Our testing positivity rate right now is at 2%, and our cases per day per 100,000 residents is 5.4. And so that's hovered around 5.0 to 5.5 over the last few weeks. But we haven't seen any measurable increases.
Great, thank you. Tara or Mike, would either of you like to go?
I'm sorry, what?
Mike?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll jump in and thank you everyone for allowing me to be here. My name is Mike Sponsler, District Director for Assemblymember Tim Grayson. Past few weeks have seen the committee season going full force and ramping up to a very quick start with the legislature, and the Assemblymember was happy to host as chair the first Banking and Finance Committee hearing this past week, and the next one will be a couple weeks from now. There have been 5 bills of Mr. Grayson's passed through committee, AB 389, which would allow counties, specifically Contra Costa County, but counties across California to retain their contracting power with their local fire agencies for emergency medical services. AB 602 has gone through committee and has gone through some amendments for those who are tracking some of the nexus studies and fee work that Mr. Grayson has been working on over the last couple years. A couple bills regarding some credit services and identity theft with debt collectors. Those bills have also gone through committee, and we are happy to engage with anyone if there are specific questions you have regarding committee with any of Mr. Grayson's bills in committee. And May 11th, as a heads up for everyone who's on the call or monitoring this, we will be having a small business webinar in conjunction with the Treasurer's Office, going over some of the stuff from iBank and some of the services that are available for our small business to take advantage of during the pandemic. So as we get the link in the flyer, I will make sure to send it to the chamber and anyone who is interested.
And to us, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Mike. And we have, let's see, who else do we have? Colleen, we have, there she is, Tara Kopp from.
Hi.
You switch on my screen, you're over here 1 minute and then you switch. When somebody leaves, you
We're all moving around.
Yes, I'm looking over at the screen to make sure you hadn't left. Hi, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here and see everyone. A couple updates. Tomorrow, the Congressman is hosting a Facebook town hall on HR 1. The For the People Act, and he'll be joined by the author of the bill, Congressman John Sarbanes. You don't need to have a Facebook account, no need to register. It will be Facebook Live, but it's available on the Congressman's Facebook page after the live event also, if you're not able to make it. Last week, the Congressman chaired his first Health, Employment, Labor, and Pension Subcommittee. The focus was the importance of improving access to behavioral health services. That's a new chairmanship for the Congressman this Congress, so he's very excited about that. On the workplace front, the House passed a couple bills this past week, the Paycheck Fairness Act that closes loopholes in federal law that allow pay discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy, etc. And the Workplace Violence Prevention for Healthcare and Social Service Workers Act. The Congressman supported both of those bills, so those were both passed. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Thank you.
He's been hosting regular town halls, so he's a busy guy. It's great.
He enjoys it. He loves it.
Very, very, very appreciated. And he's very good at it. It's great.
Great. Well, thank you to the 3 reps for providing updates on that. Of course, their information will be in the spreadsheet as well. So if you do have questions, they are all very accessible and all answered within a timely manner, which I know we appreciate here at the chamber, because sometimes we're like, hey guys, we need this, and they're on top of it. So we appreciate that. A couple updates from the chamber. Tomorrow we're hosting at 2:00 p.m. a webinar on the Measure V commercial rent relief program that we're administering on behalf of the city. So that's from 2 to 3. We'll go over a program overview and open it up for Q&A for the businesses that are eligible to ask questions. And that will be recorded. So if you can't catch it then and you want to watch it afterwards or pass it along to small businesses that you know who might be eligible, please do. And then that program opens up applications on Monday. And so there's 19 days for businesses to apply, opens up the 26th, and it closes on May 14th. And we'll be letting businesses know on May 21st if they have received the grant. So all that information is on the website, and of course we'll include it as we send out the contact list. This Thursday, we have a speaker speaking on new laws in 2021. She's an HR professional, so a lot of good information for our businesses. And then the last speaker in our speaker series is on May 4th, and it's about getting your business on Google and how to maximize that, your SEO, everything Google that you need to do for your business. So those are kind of some big things that we have coming up. Of course, if you have any questions for the chamber, you can call us. We are all working virtually or in the office, so we are accessible for you as well. And I think that's it. I'd like to thank Tamara. She is our chair for our Government Economic Policy Committee. Oh, and I'll say next month we do have a representative from CCTA that will be speaking on the Momentum station that is out at the Naval Weapons Base. So that'll be a good one to hear an update on what they have going out there. Some fun information for that.
And we have airplanes flying themselves in the sky, and we have cars driving themselves out at the Naval Weapons Station.
Yeah.
Really, it's not, and you're right, as Kate said, it's not the Jetsons. I mean, this is how this is happening. It's not, sitcom anymore. It's really, I did not think I would live to see all of this. It's really exciting.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we'll get you out of here. We hope to see you at one of our events soon. I appreciate you all taking the time to hear an update on this, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.